Hello everyone, welcome to today's yoga class. So not gonna lie, working with a bit of a migraine today, so we'll be moving a little bit slower. But if you have lots of energy, looking to build heat, there will be opportunities for that. This class is a bit of a balance, as most things in yoga are. We're going to be working a bit with the deep core, all those subtle muscles deep within us that really help to support us in our posture and our movements. So there will be some opportunities to build heat there. But we're also going to be pairing that with a lot of massaging and rocking, activities that activate that parasympathetic rest and digest system. So I think it'll be a fun experience. I just got back from yoga teacher training a couple weeks ago, and this is one of the sequences that I prepared during that. So we've got some new tricks up our sleeve today. You shouldn't really need anything special for this class. It can be helpful to have blocks nearby if you would like. Alternatively, you can use a bolster or a pillow. I would recommend that you set up your mat if it's possible with the long edge facing towards the screen, and you can turn such that your left arm will be towards the computer screen. We'll try without mirroring today. If you want to put your blocks or bolsters over to your right, they should be nice and handy if and when we need them. So let's slowly come down to our mats, allowing the feet to make contact with the mat, knees bent, and just pour that spine onto your mat. To start here, you can allow the palms to face up towards the ceiling and just feel your body melt down towards the earth. Start to turn your attention to the breath, and without changing it, just notice the quality of the breath today. Does it feel a little short? Does it feel warm and smooth? Where in your body do you feel the breath most apparent? Is it the cold air as you inhale through your nose? Is it the rise of your chest or belly? Start to tune in to what is happening in this moment. Let's start to invite a bit of movement into our body by taking our palms and placing them flat beside our hips. Feel free to adjust your spine so that it feels nice and long on the mat. And now we're going to slowly bounce our toes up and down off the mat. You can go a little faster if it's fun, and just allow them to fall where they will. This is a way to get them to fall in a natural position without overthinking it. If things do feel a little off, feel free to readjust to a point where you feel like your low back is supported and making some contact with the mat. Excellent. From here, let's tick-tock our knees from maybe 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Just tiny micro windshield wipers, mobilizing the low back today. We're going to ask it to do a lot, so we want to be very nice to it. You can slowly progress to your 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock. If you're like, it's 2023, I don't know analog clocks, just make your windshield wipers a little bigger. But no need to make the knees go anywhere near the earth. Be guided by the sensations that are occurring within your low back. Great. From here, let's start to tag some weight into our feet so that we feel our low back press against the mat. You can repeat that a few times, feeling the weight press into your feet, low back flattening against the mat, and then releasing that weight and noticing how it naturally springs up. It's very subtle. It'll look like basically nothing, but it really helps to stabilize our core. next time the low back is flat against the mat, I invite you to feel that left leg getting a little lighter, and as slowly as possible, peel it off the mat, noticing that the slower you go, the stronger this movement is and the more work you can feel happening within your deep core. Let's allow that left leg to press right up to the ceiling through the heel, almost like you're going to take a step on the ceiling. I invite you to experiment with the bend in your knee, finding that perfect balance between effort, perfectly straight, and ease where there's no sensation. And find a spot where you feel some activation in the front of the leg and a bit of stretch on the back. Once you've got your perfect balance for today, taking a minute to reconnect with the breath and feel that low back on the mat, I now invite you to engage with some slow ankle circles. Moving slowly and luxuriously, noticing that when the toes are towards the face, you can feel that lengthening through the back and activation through the front. And when the toes are up to the ceiling, maybe a bit of the opposite. Let's reverse the direction if you haven't already, trying to imagine that this movement is as smooth as possible, and welcome any cracks that come up. Great. Pause. Let's press through the heel to work towards straightening the leg right here for a minute or two. And now let's bend through that left knee, place the left ankle on top of the right thigh. Now maybe you're already feeling some stuff in your left hip. That's awesome, great. No need to do anything more. If this is not really doing anything for you, I invite you to start to feel that right foot get a little lighter. You can play with this a few times, leaving the skin of the right foot on the mat as you imagine you're about to peel it away, noticing how that activates the deep core. When you're ready, you can slowly peel the foot off the mat, noticing that the slower you go, the more strength it takes, and we'll bring our knees towards our chest. Option to reach through the legs and interlace the fingers behind that right thigh, using the left elbow to provide a little bit of counter traction on that left knee, figure 4 position. Pause here for a minute, noticing any sensations that are coming up, particularly in that left hip. I now invite you to rock and roll slowly from side to side, feeling how that changes the location of the stretch throughout that outer left hip. If this rocking doesn't feel good, feel free to pause in the middle. You can also use your arms to circle your right knee, almost like there's a marker coming out of it and you're drawing a little circle on the ceiling. Return to your breath, making sure your movements are slow and strong. If you're rocking side to side, maybe expand that rock a little bit if sensation in your hip allows. Less is more. Let's now return to neutral. Allow that right foot to fall down towards the mat. We're going to press into the right foot to raise the hips, nudge them a little bit towards your left or closer to the screen, and then drop them down. We're now going to continue to cross that left leg over the right, and this is the opportunity, if you have a bolster or block, bring them close to your knees so that you can fall the legs towards the right, maybe allowing them to rest on that bolster or block. You can look over your left shoulder, arms can come out in a cactus position or in a T shape. If you don't feel like you're getting enough sensation, you can always move your bolster block out of the way and allow the knees to fall towards the earth. Just be careful that there's no pinching happening in that low back. So return to the breath here, noticing how the breath kind of naturally massages the body in this position. When you're ready, from your core, let's imagine pulling those knees up towards the midline, uncrossing the legs, and now let's bring one knee into the chest, other knee into the chest, and rock and roll side to side. Feel free to readjust the spine or do anything you need to do to make sure it feels long and lengthened and supported. This should be a nice massage throughout the lower back. Now we're going to do the same thing next side. So let's drop those feet down towards the mat. Option to bounce the toes a couple of times so that they fall in a naturally safe position. You can place your hands down beside your hips. And from here, start to imagine that right leg getting a little lighter. Noticing how that naturally activates the deep core, making sure our low back is making full contact with the mat. You can allow that right leg to rise up and then press through the heel, almost like you're going to, again, walk on the ceiling. Take a minute to find your perfect balance of effort and ease today, keeping in mind that you're under no obligation to make it look like anyone else's. Once you've found your spot, start to engage in slow ankle circles. Really feeling that activation and lengthening throughout the cylinder of muscles around the leg. You can reverse the direction if you haven't already, really feeling the stretch in the plantar fascia as the toes point towards your nose. That's this fibrous tissue on the bottom of the foot. I know for me it gets really tight, so this is like a daily activity for me. All right, let's press through the heel, aiming for some activation, lengthening, straightening-ish of that leg. And now let's place that right ankle on top of the left thigh. Option to pause here, taking a moment to be humble. Notice if it feels different than the other side. And if you'd like to explore some more sensation, maybe start to slowly peel that left foot off of the mat. Bring the whole apparatus towards your chest. Reach between the legs and interlace the fingers behind the left thigh. This time, listen for the change. See if you can put the opposite thumb on top, the one that feels a little weird. Yoga can be repetitive, so having these moments to put ourselves in the beginner mindset really keeps us present in the moment. Such a simple little thing. Let's now use our right elbow against our right knee. Hug the legs closer to the chest, guided by that sensation in the outer right hip. And when you're ready, option to rock and roll from side to side. Just as slowly and gently as you'd rock a baby to sleep. You can imagine maybe you're in a hammock, swaying in a summer breeze, which is a really nice visualization given that there's literally like 7 feet of snow outside my house right now. Again, if the rocking's not doing it for you, you can pause in stillness. You can draw those circles instead. Pick your favorite. Let's now allow that left foot to drop down towards the mat. Press into the left foot to raise the hips ever so slightly, bump them to the right, and place them down. Cross that right leg over top of the left and allow the legs to fall over the left as your arms go out to the sides. Option to turn your head away from the screen towards the right. Again, if you've got your blocks or bolsters handy, and if you feel your legs are floating out into space unsupported, put a little bit of support below your knees and see how that changes the sensation. Turn your attention to your right shoulder. Feel it making contact with the mat and engage in some deep breathing. Noticing how the breath kind of wrings out the spine just like you would a wet cloth. This time you can imagine that you're wringing out any tension that's developing throughout your back. Start to return to the body from the core. I invite you to pull your legs up. You can raise the feet off the mat if you want a little bit more core activation. Straighten out the spine, uncross the legs, and bring the knees into the chest for an Uppanasana. Hold. Rock and roll side to side. Get a nice massage in the low back. You should feel really fluid and soft throughout the hips and back. But if you don't, that's also okay too. You can move your blocks or bolsters to the side. I'll chuck mine so it's not in the way. Great. I know we're doing a lot on our back. We're going to be here for a little bit longer, but we're going to take things up a notch. So let's return the feet to that mat. Stamp the low spine or the entire spine down onto the mat so you feel that little bit of activation from the core. From here, start to play with feeling really light in that right foot, almost like you're about to lift it off the mat, but you're just doing 1% of the effort needed to lift it. This should activate some of the muscles in your core. Play with that a little bit, and when you're ready, slowly peel the foot off the mat, raise the knee into the air, and then just slowly and smoothly return it. Now, this can be pretty intense for some of us. If you're like, not really feeling it, option to raise both legs off the mat and slowly tap that left foot down. If this is still not doing much for you, option to press through that right heel and slowly tap that left foot down with the knee bent. And you can experiment with maybe lowering that right leg a little bit and see how that changes the sensation. Only lower it so far that you can really feel your low back stamped into the mat. If you want to really feel some sensation, hover it an inch or two away from the mat and continue on with this slow but strong movement. Return to your breath. Wherever you're at, we'll do 3 more on this side. Great, let's drop both knees into the chest, place the feet down onto the mat, and engage in some windshield wipers, noticing if maybe your body's craving going a little bit farther this time now that we've warmed up the spine so much. Let's do the same thing next side. So we'll find a position where our spine feels fully in contact with the mat, all the way from the back of our head to our tailbone. And you can imagine lifting that right foot off the mat, keeping the skin of the foot fully in contact. These subtle movements look like nothing, but they activate that deep core. And that deep core really allows us to fly in a lot of our balance postures. When you're ready, you can slowly peel those right toes off of the mat. Keep the knees bent. Do your slow and smooth toe taps, making sure the low back is in contact with the mat the entire time. Ooh, this already feels like a lot for me. But again, option 2, raise both feet off the floor and just continue tapping with the right, maybe lengthening through that left leg, and then deciding how close to the mat you want to put it so that you feel a sensation you're craving without allowing that low back to pop up off the mat. Once again, we'll be here for 3 more slow toe taps. I like to inhale as I tap and exhale as I raise. But notice what you're naturally doing. And maybe experiment with the opposite if you'd like. I think that's maybe a little more than 3 for me. But from here, let's bring the knees into the chest for a little hug. Place the feet onto the mat and windshield wiper from side to side. All right. From here, let's engage with some toe taps. Find a spot where your low back feels nice and lengthened. palms are beside the hips, flat on the mat. And we're now going to continue pressing through the feet to really stamp the low back onto the mat, noticing how the pelvis tilts up. Repeat this a few times. And then on the next inhale, let's raise the hips, coming to a bridge pose, Satya Bandha Sarvangasana. After all that work on the hips and the legs, this should feel fairly effortless. It's okay if it's not. And on your next exhale, let's lower the spine truly vertebrae by vertebrae. We're going to do that again, but this time I invite you to inhale here and then exhale to press back into the mat and raise the hips, noticing how it changes the sensation. And then on your next inhale, let's lower the hips towards the mat. And repeat that 1 or 2 times more, following on your own time with your own breath. Excellent. If you would like, option here to raise one leg into the air, press through the other for single leg bridge pose. You can repeat that a few times, or if you want, you can hold at the top and maybe do 3 to 5 pulses to really feel the activation through the opposite hip. If you did single leg bridge on one side, now's the opportunity to do it on the other. We'll be here for maybe 5 more breaths. Feeling free to pause or hold wherever it feels good for you. Great. From here, let's bring the knees into the chest, rocking and rolling side to side. And we're going to get off our backs. Probably feeling a little eager for that now. Rock and roll onto your left side and press on up very slowly because we're lying down for a lot. Allow the legs to come out to the short edge of the mat with your feet flat on the mat and knees bent. Your palms will be behind your hips, fingertips facing towards the feet. And from here, we're going to engage in some very slow windshield wipe side to side, really feeling a massage through our bum and our hips. Repeat this a few times. I really like to bend my elbows as I go back because it really massages that horseshoe of muscle around the hips and bum. Now notice what's happening in these windshield wipers. As my knees go towards the right, I can feel myself getting really light in that left palm, and vice versa. If you feel so inspired, the next time your knees are towards the left, spin out with your left palm, reach up and over with the right, and then bend the elbow to swing over to the other side. This allows some opening throughout the shoulders, making this a full body experience. It's natural to feel yourself sliding down the mat, so if you want to reposition, go for it. And now as you're engaging in these windshield wipers, you might feel a little tempted to come into a brief side plank. So the next time I'm over on my left and I've got my left hand below my shoulder, fingertips facing away, feel free to press up into the legs. I've got my left foot in front, right foot behind, coming into an effortless side plank. And you can continue this journey from side to side. Almost imagining that the hips rising are something that's happening to you rather than something you're actively doing. If it feels good, you can pause in your side plank. You can even take a variation, maybe raising one of the legs, doing whatever feels good for you. And if you're like, I do not feel like a side plank today, continue on with these windshield wipers. Enjoy the free bum massage. It is awesome. We're all gonna do whatever our body's craving. Let's do one more each side, whatever variation's working for your body today. Awesome. Great. Let's come to the middle. Reposition yourself on the mat. Allow your legs to go out in front of you. Maybe give them a little bit of a shake. Bend through the knees. Reach up and over to drape the body over top of the legs. Hands can fall wherever they may. Does not matter at all. I like to drape my spine over and shift the weight side to side so that my spine snakes. It's a great way to kind of release any tension that's built up through the back. On your next inhale, kick through the legs, reach up and over. And let's do that one more time. Bend through the knees, fold towards the legs, pouring the spine over top. And then on your inhale, press through. Come on up. From here, let's place the palms behind the hips, fingertips pointing towards the feet. Place one foot on the mat, other foot on the mat, and let's press up into a reverse table. So we're going to look right down our chest. If it feels good, you can slowly allow your head to look behind you. Be very conscious of any pinching in the neck. Otherwise, give yourself a double chin and look down towards your chest and knees. Let's repeat this a few times, lowering the hips to hover, and then rising up into a reverse table. Really feeling that opening throughout the front of the chest and the hips. Let's repeat that one more time wherever you're at. I like to inhale into the reverse table. And now let's all float the hips down towards the earth. Grand. From here, we're going to cross the left leg over top of the right, take our right palm and point the fingertips away from our body. This is such a fun transition. Don't overthink it. Reach up and over with your left arm to come into a tabletop. If you want to repeat that a few times, go ahead. You could also reverse across to spin in the other direction. If that is breaking your brain, no worries. Come to tabletop however you would like, my friend. We're going to arrive with our palms beneath our shoulders, knees underneath our hips. And we're going to start with one round of cat-cow. So we'll inhale as we drop our belly, expanding through the front of the body. And then exhale as we tuck our pelvis, press through the mat into our Halloween cat pose. Let's return to neutral. So that's probably familiar for many of us who've done yoga. I invite you now to inhale and then exhale as we drop the belly, maybe keeping in mind we can't go quite as far. And then inhale into our cat. Again, noticing if maybe we're a bit restricted. Repeat this a few times. Changing the breath that we usually associate with the movement can awaken some new sensations and new muscles in the body and helps to keep poses that might be familiar and even a little boring, kind of more interesting. Excellent. Let's pause here for neutral. Feel free to come to the elbows for a second and roll out the wrists if you're finding they need a little bit of a break. I think mine are pretty happy with that. And when you're ready, return to your table. We'll tuck under the toes. Imagine yourself dragging your palms towards your knees towards your palms. Feel that activation of the core and use that to float the knees off of the mat as effortlessly as possible. We'll be here for 5 breaths, knowing we can take a break at any point in time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't drop the knees just yet. Walk up the palms. Press up and back into our first downward dog. Let's pedal out through the feet, really pressing through the shoulders, lengthening through the spine, scooping out the spine, just like how we do in our cow pose, and then allowing the heels to sink towards the mat, allowing for a bit of a bend in the knees. We'll pause here, again, for maybe about 3 breaths this time. Great. Let's now start to slowly walk our palms back towards our feet, ever so slowly, meeting in a forward fold. Find that balance again between effort and ease, bending your knees, noticing how it opens up the low back, lengthening through the knees, noticing how it opens up the hamstrings. Find a good balance for you today. On your next inhale, imagine yourself like you're a pool floaty being inflated, and all parts of your body equally rise up into a halfway lift position. On your next exhale, let's sink towards the mat, imagining every part of your body softening. We'll repeat that. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to deflate. This time on your next inhale, let's send the weight back into our heels and allow our hamstrings to start to tilt our pelvis into position, noticing how the spine naturally follows as we slowly rise into a Tadasana or mountain pose. Feel that flush of energy at your back of your mat. And now that we've done so much work on our legs and core, let's enjoy it. We're going to go for a walk. So we're just going to simply take slow, conscious steps around our mat, noticing if anything feels different than normal. Maybe our hips feel a little bit more buoyant. Maybe we feel a little bit of extra stability, and maybe not. That's okay too. Just notice where you're at and try to meet it without any judgment. Great. When you're ready, let's pause in the middle of our mat, facing towards its long edge in the screen. From here, I invite you to kind of bounce through your hips, play with a position where you feel like you're buoyant and supported, like you can move and dance if you wanted to. Okay, I will stop dancing. That was a little too much to dance like no one's watching when it's on YouTube. So from here, we're going to experiment with that lightening, that unweighting, and I'm going to start mirroring now since we're facing each other, of that left leg. So you can slowly start to shift your weight towards the right and feel the right side of your body catch your weight. You can start to come into a mini tree pose by taking your left foot and placing it onto your right calf. Let's repeat this a few times, really pressing out of that right leg so that our hips aren't jutting out towards the side. And if this is fun, feel free to go a little deeper, almost coming into a Skandasana pose and then flying up into tree. Let's repeat this a few times, moving on your own time with your own breath. And it's totally cool if you're like, whoa, I'm just gonna do my tiny little trees here, building my strength and stability. That is awesome. Maybe you want to go down for a full Skandasana or skater pose and then come on up for a full tree. I should even say full. They're just different. It's not like one's emptier than the other. They get you the same benefits either way. All right, we're going to stop our playing soon. Wherever you're at, let's meet in tree pose. And if you're usually someone who's like, yeah, a tree right up at my thigh, maybe go a little lower for some extra stability. If you're usually on your calf, maybe place it on the earth or find a bit of wall for support. From here, I invite you to choose what kind of tree you want to be. Allow your arms to come up overhead, hands to your hips, pick your favorite. We're now going to start rocking back and forth a little bit on that right foot, noticing how the strength and stability we cultivated through the legs and ankle supports us, but it's not infallible. If you're feeling really adventurous, option to come up onto the toes in your tree. Totally fine to fall out. Good, you can repeat these ankle raises a few times, playing in your tree or pausing for stillness. Let's release that, shake out that right leg, maybe go for a little walk again to stretch out the plantar fascia of the feet. Told you my fascia were tight. All right. Same thing, next side. So we're gonna pause for stillness in the middle. Maybe do a little bit of a dance to find that spot where you feel maximally supported, meaning your feet can be closer together, farther apart. They can be tilted outwards or inwards. Everyone's body's a little different. So just find what works for your own. All right, from here, we're gonna start to get a little bit light in that right foot. Yeah, feel the left side of your body catch you as you kind of play between your regular Tadasana and your Vrikshasana or tree pose. Totally okay if one side is not balancing as well as the other, but you're invited to play with this dancing tree, kind of coming into a mini Skandasana or skater pose and your Vrikshasana or tree pose. You can lengthen out your stance if it feels good to do so. I like to do this little sweeping with my arms. You can go as fast or as slow and conscious as you like. Every yoga practice is truly a choose your own adventure. It's all about being present with what's happening in your body. Great. Wherever you're at, let's start to meet on our Vrikshasana or tree pose. Really pressing out through that left leg. Choose what kind of tree you'd like to be. And from here, you can rock back and forth on that foot. Pick a drishti spot to stare at down below in front of you. And if you want, come up onto the toes and release. You can do a few of these or pause for stillness. We'll be here for 3 more breaths. And let's release. Great. Shake out that left leg. Go for a little walk, maybe pausing to stretch through the bottom of the feet so gently. And let's slowly start to wind things down. Let's pause in the middle. This time, let's widen out our stance a little bit. Loosening through the hips. Inhale the arms up overhead, and then exhale to bend through the knees and dive on down into a wide-legged forward fold. Just like before, you can shift the weight from hip to hip and snake the spine side to side to release any tension throughout the trunk, the legs, the arms. You can imagine them like noodles. It's a no bones day. Great. From here, let's start to walk towards our right foot to frame it with our palms, coming into a bit of a lunge. You can rock back and forth, really massage out through that back foot. Press into the palms, step back into a brief plank, knowing you can come to your knees at any time. If you are in a plank pose, rock back and forth to feel the stretch throughout the feet. And now let's step up with the opposite foot. Let's rock back and forth, feeling the stretch throughout that back foot. Press through the palms, step back into your plank, last heat of the practice, and we'll be here for 3, 2, 1. Let's slowly, enjoying the journey, lower towards the mat. Awesome. Untuck those toes, wiggle over towards the side of your mat closest to the screen. Send out your back arm, and let's flop over onto our backs. Take a minute to gather any props you'd like for the final Shavasana and to recenter your spine so that it feels lengthened and supported. Return to the breath. And just like at the beginning of the practice, notice what's happening without judgment. Notice how you feel. And take a minute to feel some gratitude for the work we've done together today. I invite you to stay in your Shavasana for as long as you would like. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and doing some yoga.